Let's go back now to TTC Davisville Car House, where we're hearing from Transport Minister Caroline Mulroney. Certainly she'll be asked about the Eglinton Crosstown. Let's listen in.
The most ambitious transit expansion plan in North America, and effectively doubling Mr. Verster's mandate. And that's why we increased his salary when we did. We have a lot of work that we still need to do. Today is an important announcement moving forward with the RFQ on the advanced tunneling for the Yonge North Subway extension. And so we look forward to continuing to work with Mr. Verster so we can deliver on this important work that we need to deliver on for the people of Toronto.
When it comes to the problems on the crosstown specifically, you've been reluctant to say what's at stake here. In our system of government, ministers are accountable and responsible. So can you tell us whether it's Metrolinx that's the problem? Is it Crosslinks? Is it a combination? Or if you won't say either of that, is it simply you and your ministry that is at the heart of this problem, because ultimately you are responsible?
Well, let me say, as Minister of Transportation, I am accountable and I am responsible for everything that happens within my ministry, including getting this system opened. I take my responsibility with respect to the transportation network very seriously, making sure that it is safe. That is our #1 priority, whether it's a road or a bridge or a subway system, a transit expansion, it needs to be safe for use. And so I am fully responsible for the opening of the system. But we've seen in Ottawa what happens when politicians push subway systems or transit systems to open before they're ready. And we don't want that to happen here. So we are working closely with Metrolinx to get CTS, who's delivering the project for us, to provide a credible schedule so that we can then let the people of Ontario know when we'll be able to open the system.
Hi, Lex Harvey with the Toronto Star. I understand that there are obviously some issues that are causing delays in this project, but I just wanted to get at the question of transparency a little bit more. According to an FOI I did and saw some emails between your office and Metrolinx, it's clear that your office is directing Metrolinx not to answer basic questions from reporters like myself. I'm just wondering how can you expect Ontarians to have confidence in big transit projects? We just announced a new one starting today, and we have the Ontario line, of course, when there just don't seem to be clear basic answers or transparency about this major project.
Well, I can say one of the big tasks that we have with building transit is making sure that we are working closely and communicating well with stakeholders, with people who are affected by the construction, businesses, people who live along the different lines. And Metrolinx has been engaging consistently since we began with our subway projects for the GTA back in 2019, of meeting with community members and engaging with them and providing them with the answers that they need. These are projects that are going to transform communities, but building transit is disruptive, and we want to make sure that people have the answers that they need. And so we have been working, Metrolinx has been working closely with the communities that are affected along all of the routes to make sure that we are listening to them, we're taking their feedback and incorporating them into our plans.
So I feel like the answer that people really need is, what is the outstanding work that needs to be done here, and will it be completed this year?
So as I said, I would love to be able to provide a date, but that is contingent upon CTS delivering a credible schedule to Metrolinx. And as of yet, CTS has not been able to do that, but I understand that that conversations are going well. And I can tell you, Metrolinx has been working around the clock to make sure that we can get to this point, but we don't have that yet. But I am hopeful that we will be able to have a credible schedule soon. And I might turn it over to Phil so he can talk about some of the technical things that Metrolinx is looking for specifically.
Thank you, Minister. We are using every lever and every remedy in our P3 contracts to get our contractors, CTS, to deliver on time. But the key thing is that the quality must be right and the safe transit system must be delivered. And Metro is not a construction company, but we have multi-billion-dollar private sector companies that have the resources, the subcontractors, the people, and the schedule and the means to deliver this. It is how it's organized. Let me give you a few practical examples of what my concerns specifically are. We have clearly, for a very long time, challenged the forecast from CTS to complete in the second half of 2023. Practical examples are the following. There are 260 non-conformances, quality issues, that must be rectified. And please understand, those quality issues get rectified at CTS's expense. And similarly, the cost of delay of the project is at CTS's expense. And we are withholding substantial payments against against the completion of the project. But the biggest quality issue which we're dealing with, which CTS is dealing with now, is in 2021, the track work was completed. It's outside of specification, though, and it needs to be rectified. And despite our urging and our guidance, it's only being rectified now. And it will have a two-month impact at least on the completion date. And I think what is crucial in terms of the testing and commissioning of the program, which is where CTS then actually demonstrate that everything that's been constructed and put in place is actually working together, have for several months fallen well short of CTS's own targets of delivery. And we have pushed CTS to rethink their schedule and to restructure the resources and the work that's being done on the testing and commissioning. We cannot start. We cannot start with the training of the TTC operators till the system is fully complete and ready. And up to now, the completion of the site acceptance testing is only about 50% of what we expect it to be. And that will now be, as late as yesterday, the CTS CEO gave me an assurance that they will now sit and in the coming weeks, as the minister has indicated, rethink their schedule and rethink the resources they're putting on the schedule. Here's the last point to just consider. Once the testing and commissioning is completed, then CTS's own engineers must certify the documentation that the work has been done to the specification that Metrolinx have put forward and to the quality that is required. That is about 20% complete at this stage, despite our guidance on what needs to be done at this point in time. So for sure, we're spending an inordinate amount actively managing and guiding CTS in their delivery. And yes, we want this project completed. But I got to say, my biggest concern is that the quality is right and that we get a safe transit system. We're building infrastructure here for the next 100, 150 years, and we've got to get it right.
Hi there, Lorenda Redekop from CBC. Could you just put in very simple language for people, because I think there are a lot of questions on exactly what the heck is causing these delays for the Eglinton Crosstown. So is it at one spot along the line? What is it? Where is it? What's happening?
Well, I would say, and you heard from Phil some pretty technical reasons for what's going on, but I would say, first of all, we all went through a 2-year pandemic that had an impact on construction projects and public infrastructure projects, not just here, but around the world. That had an impact on supply chains, and that does have an impact on our schedule. And we were clear about that at the beginning of the pandemic. Both Phil and myself spoke to the fact that the pandemic would surely affect our transit schedules. And as you heard from Phil, now that we're looking, most of the system is complete, but we're getting into that testing and commissioning phase, and we're imposing our strict quality control to make sure that the infrastructure, before we accept it, is safe and of a certain quality, as expected as required in our contract.
Did Phil want to follow up with just some kind of simple?
One of the most important simple lessons that we see across all of our contracts and that we are forcing back into all of our contractors and all of our contractors are the following. At the launch of a project, the contractor very often is not as pressured on time because completion is years away and time is lost in the design process. CTS's initial designs were between 9 and 18 months late in some cases. And losing 18 months at the beginning of a project is never really recovered thereafter. Second thing that is really crucial that we've learned and that we've changed on all of our contracts is how the contract is put together. Putting it together as one big contract means the contractor has a higher likelihood of not succeeding because of the scale of it. And breaking our contracts into smaller parts and delivering in parts, such as what we're doing today with just launching the tunneling contract, has a much higher degree of success. And so we've built that learnings and several other learnings into all of our projects across the whole of our portfolio.
And for the minister, we have several big projects. They're P3 models. We've seen so many delays in the various projects. Now we've got the Ontario line starting. Is the problem with that model?
Well, no, as you heard Phil just say, what we have done is we've taken things that we've learned from the Ottawa LRT and from the crosstown, and we've applied those learnings to the building of our new priority transit projects. Just today, we're announcing a small discrete project for the advanced tunneling for the Yonge North. We broke the Ontario line into 3 different projects so we could maximize the number of bidders who come forward, which then helps make it more competitive, and that's good for taxpayers. And it's also good from a risk management perspective and helps those contractors deliver the project on time. So we have taken those learnings and moved them forward, and we've made adjustments to our priority transit projects that our government has brought forward.
I don't know if this is a question more appropriate for you, Minister, or for Phil, but you talked about the issues with the track not being built to specification. How does that happen? How do you complete an entire run of track and then have to go back and fix it afterwards?
Track is one of my favorite topics, so thanks for the question. If you have track, which are literally millimeters out of out of specification, and it's what we call narrow gauge, and it's too close, the risk you have is that a train runs and actually climbs up on the track and derails. So the degree of accuracy that we're talking about are literally millimeters that must be done right. Still, I would argue it should be done right, and it can be done right. But to give you a sense of it, this is not sort of centimeters of error. This is millimeters of error. Anyone that builds tracks should know that. And so it's unfortunate this doesn't get done right. And there are ways to fix it. There are different technologies you can use to fix it. You can grind it away slightly. You can do very, very, very different proposals. And we and our technical people are all over our contractors when stuff like this happens, and we advise them of what needs to be done right. But I don't control the schedule because I don't control the commercial risk of late delivery. That is for the contractor to decide upon. They must put it in this system of work orders and slot it in and do it right. And as a government and as an agency, we can guide, we can advise, but in the end, the decisions are made by the contractors.
I have a question for you, Minister, on another subject.
Okay, well, just to follow up on that, what I'd like to say is, part of the delays is that we're waiting to accept this infrastructure, and we're doing this strict testing and quality control on what we choose to accept at the end, or what we decide to accept at the end, so that Ontarians can have confidence in the safety and the reliability of the network that we do accept and that we open. And as you saw in Ottawa, where we force the opening of a system before this important quality control occurs, then the system doesn't work and it's not reliable. And so our government is adamant about making sure that the system, when we accept it, is safe for people to use, because that's what they expect.
We know that thousands of license plates in Ontario are faded, they're peeling, they're unreadable. The 407 and OPP have flagged issues with this. Why does your government not replace those plates?
Well, we've allowed people to come forward to replace their plates as they wish. We've equipped our OPP with automated license plate readers so that they can track cars as they're driving down the road. But look, we've encouraged people to come forward to replace them as they wish, and it's up to individual drivers to do so.
Hi. I'm not hearing a lot of love today for CTS, so I'm just wondering whether it be from the minister or Mr. Verster.
We've been listening live to officials talking. They were talking specifically about the extension of the subway up to Richmond Hill, but of course the reporter questions today largely focusing on the Eglinton Crosstown LRT after we learned of yet another delay. You heard Metrolinx's CEO there, Phil Verster, talking about some of the challenges with these private sector companies who've been tasked with building the Eglinton Crosstown LRT, saying he's hoping to have a better timeline, and Minister Mulroney also saying she's hoping to nail down a credible schedule to let people know when the Eglinton Crosstown will actually open. Sounds like now not till 2024.